Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, 2026 Sales Predictions, What the Winning Playbook Will Look Like. Before we dive in, just a few quick housekeeping notes. Today's session is being recorded, and a link to the on-demand version will be shared with all registrants after the event. We encourage you to submit any questions that you have at any time using our chat feature. We'll address the questions at the end of the session, time permitting. If we do not get to your question, we will reach out to you after the event. You can also access additional resources and helpful links through the event portal at any time during the session. And now I'm pleased to introduce to you today's host, Michelle Galatis, Global Head of Talent Development at memoryBlue. Michelle is a proven leader in sales enablement and learning strategy with a background that spans curriculum development, technical training, and frontline sales. At memoryBlue, she drives global programs that help SDRs and sales leaders ramp faster, sell smarter, and lead stronger. Her work has transformed onboarding and enablement across regions, blending data, creativity, and a passion for unlocking potential at scale. Whether building SDR academies or leadership training, Michelle's focus is always on impact, and it shows. Michelle, over to you.
Thank you so much, Stacey. I'm so excited for today's webinar as we unpacked how high-performing sales organizations are evolving in 2026 through outsourcing, leadership, enablement, and AI. And joining us today are Lauren Bailey, founder and CEO of Factor 8. Lauren is a force in modern sales training, known for ramping sellers faster and helping people genuinely love the craft. As the founder of both Factor 8 and Girls Club, she spent 15 plus years empowering reps and elevating women into leadership across the globe. And when she's not coaching or keynoting, she's chasing two boys, exploring Paris, or falling in love with rescue animals she definitely did not plan to adopt. Next up from memoryBlue, we have Jason Smith, one of our delivery managers. Jason is a thoughtful, people-first sales leader who blends innovation, process, and strategy to help clients scale smarter. As the delivery manager at memoryBlue, he runs high-impact global SDR programs and loves bringing new ideas and technologies into the conversation. Based in North Yorkshire, he also is deeply involved in community work through the Stockton Roundtable. And last, but certainly not least, we have Josh Francis, who's a senior delivery manager at memoryBlue. And Josh is an experienced sales operations leader who specializes in building, coaching, and scaling high-performance SDR teams across EMEA. As a senior DM at memoryBlue, he drives strategy, structure, and execution to help clients create pipeline and win in complex sales cycles. He brings energy, clarity, and laser focus on results to every team he supports. So thank you all so much for your time today. And I'm really excited to jump in. So let's start with probably one of the most important questions that everyone on this call is here to learn about is the critical role of the SDR and what that looks like in 26. So, SDRs are really at the heart of both of our organizations and at the heart of sales and really kind of the heart of this conversation as well. So in a landscape filled with evolving technologies, changing buyer behavior, and shifting go-to-market strategies, why is the SDR function becoming more critical than ever in 2026? And Lauren, maybe I'll kick it off with you.
Listen, I don't think I'm going to surprise anybody by saying it will be more critical than ever. And it's because so many other things and people and companies are replacing SDRs with AI. We have AI outreach. We have AI emails, calls, inbound and outbound. And it's getting noisy and it's getting generic. And the quality and the experience for the customer is tanking. So I think that the high level SDR will become more important. I think your low level SDRs will be replaced. So the critical role is the SDR that can do discovery, the SDR that can make connections, can build rapport, and can positively brand your company. That's critical.
Yeah, absolutely. And Josh, I know you're at the forefront of managing SDRs. How do you see this shift happening within your organization?
Yeah, sure. I think just to what Lauren just mentioned there, really for me, the reason why the SDR is going to be critical is because the SDR is the first to fill the market. They're the first person to engage. They're the first person to understand that human nuance. They're going to be critical in that GTM process because it isn't just going to be let's, we always talk about hustle culture in sales, and it's not just going to be about that. It's not going to be about filling the top of the funnel and then hoping for the best. I think it's going to be imperative for the SDR to look at top of funnel, but also middle of funnel movement as well. Sellers are looking at those bigger, higher velocity deals now more than ever. There's more pressure to get those big fish landed.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, the byproduct of that is wasted opportunity, because some of those smaller deals aren't getting the nurture, they aren't getting the love that they need. And that's where I think that the human instinct is going to come in for the SDR to look at that middle of funnel movement. And again, the AI, we're going to be talking so much about AI today, so I don't want to touch on it too much with that opening gambit there. But that's certainly my thoughts. Jason?
It's hard not to talk about AI all the time. It's everywhere. It's in everything that we do. But yeah, my thoughts on this is it's AI is kind of flooding the market, right? It's flooding our inboxes. It's flooding our kind of our LinkedIn with messages, quite generic. I think at first AI looked new and it felt new, but now I think we can quite easily spot, when an email comes through, oh, this wasn't handwritten, this was AI created, and this LinkedIn message, this isn't tailored and personalized to me. So, it's not giving anyone a competitive edge. Whereas the SDR, the human touch, the someone's personality, person to person, conversing, sharing ideas, information. It's weird to say that's going to differentiate a company from another as we move forward. The human touch.
The human touch will differentiate, and the SDR is the tip of the sword. That's it in a nutshell, right? But I really super love how you're talking about getting involved in nurture and middle funnel, because the trends we're seeing, we did a sales survey recently, and I think we're going to give everybody the results that's joining us today. But the survey showed overwhelmingly that all levels are seeing that sales cycles are taking longer, right? And so that's another place for our high level SDR to get involved. I mean, no matter how you slice it, we've got to up our SDR game.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I love, you're kind of giving the teaser. You all mentioned the AI, and that'll be coming up certainly in this conversation. But I like also hearing, near and dear to my heart around the people-centered aspect of the SDR, which I think kind of ties really nicely into the next topic we wanted to cover, which are around the tactics that we're maybe leaving behind in 2025. As we know that we need to find a way for outreach to kind of be heard amongst the noise and to differentiate amongst the AI versus people. So, a lot of pressure to sales organizations happened in this year. There's more technology, tighter budgets, increasingly skeptical buyers. To Lauren's point, it's taking a bit longer. And amongst all of kind of that chaos and storm, what do you feel like sales leaders really need to leave behind in 2025, and what should we focus on going into 2026?
Yeah, definitely. I don't mind kicking off and saying I think we're going to be leaving behind those spray and pray tactics. Same message for every company, every person, just changing the name. I think AI can help us kind of provide a bit more of a personalized approach, do some research faster, and learn about our target audience and give them a message that resonates with them. So for me, I think it's that kind of volume, spray and pray, same message for everyone. That's going to get left behind, and we're going to need to get more targeted.
Love that. I mean, yes, please. I would love to have less crap messages in my LinkedIn and email box. I think that'd be fantastic. So as we leave behind the volume play, understanding that it needs to be a quality over quantity play, I think that I'll give the tip for what I think enablement leaders are going to be leaving behind. We're talking about how it has to be the super SDR now, right? And I think that the short, they'll figure it out onboarding. I think that, listen, it got to a point maybe 5 or 6 years ago before COVID that SDR best-in-class onboarding had SDRs hitting quota targets in under 3 months, right? That's what the best-in-class looked like. Then COVID, and we all went to virtual training, and SDRs couldn't listen to the people around them, and now it has done nothing but get bigger and longer. And I'm going to tell you something. Here's the big secret. videos don't teach. We had to go to video because we didn't have anything else to do, but we've gotten better at this now. Interactivity is what makes things stick. So we can't just do the generic video-based crappy onboarding anymore for SDRs because the low levels won't exist and the practice won't exist, not just because they're virtual, because AI, I think, will take some of these roles. So what I'm saying is we have to be able to hire people in at what today is considered a mid to senior role. And that means enablement leaders have a huge gap to fill. So what's going to be left behind? Crap training. That's what has to be left behind. The old onboarding that they'll figure it out. It will become a critical differentiator, and that's important. And I'll tell you, in our survey, we found that over 80% of leaders were not confident in their company's enablement plan. And that was in 2025. 2026, it becomes even more important. So I hope that gets left behind.
Mm-hmm. I think I've got something I want to really lead from that with, which is for me, you see it time and time again where, leadership will do everything for their SDR. They will give them the fish rather than teaching them to fish. And Lauren, just what you mentioned there is super interesting because the video-led enablement is going to, if we move away from that, it's going to give leadership a lot more accountability to actually be there and be present. And what we see from that servant leadership, listen, I'll do it for you, I'll do it for you, I'll do it for you constantly, it's leading to leadership burnout. The leaders are being stretched massively across arguably some larger teams that we're seeing now. And what it isn't doing is it isn't building the accountability from the SDR. It's like, okay, if I mess up, it's okay. Someone's going to come along and fix it for me. Whereas actually the big thing that I'm thinking about coming into 2026 is this coaching leadership. Okay, listen, I'll do it with you. And then I want you to have a go. And then I want you to keep on doing that rather than this, okay, I'm going to do it for you. I'm going to do it for you. I think
love it.
What that's going to be able to do is build into a more of a interactive led training rather than video based, because people are going to have more time.
It has to happen, right? It really does. I think we're coddling this generation of reps. I have heard stories that you wouldn't believe. Almost every leader told me this year, what do I need to do to get my reps to pick up the damn phone? Right? And we all know it. That's the generation. They'd rather text. My kids won't answer my call. So it's tough to get people to build that phone confidence. And so we coddle. Okay, well, touches are fine. It won't work anymore. The phone has to come. So hiding behind email and LinkedIn is something else that's going to go away. And I love the idea of the let me do everything for you coddling by the manager to keep their reps engaged. Because listen, the needle moved. We were worried about rep burnout and engagement being virtual. And our survey results just told us reps are doing great. They don't want any more of the team building and the happy-go-lucky stuff that we've all been bending over backwards to do to make sure they feel engaged. But I'm going to ask you to guess, what percentage of managers are feeling burned out? Anybody want to take a stab at it?
I'm going to go straight down the middle, 50%.
50%. He's a betting man.
I'm going to go higher than that. I'm going to go 80.
You're going to go 80. It is right in between. It's over 60%, 62, 63% of managers are reporting burnout. So I think you're exactly right. And we have to enable the managers with the skills to do that better, right? The vast majority of companies, I want to say it is less than 30% of companies offer management skills training. So, right, you're a top rep, now you're a manager, congratulations. I know that happened to me, right? And so we have to better upskill our reps so it doesn't all fall on our managers, and then better skill our managers to be coaches, not do for you and have that burnout, right? It's toughest on the managers.
And a lot of remote teams now, they're remote because COVID happened. It wasn't a big decision, for many companies of we're going to go towards a remote model. How are we going to do it? Let's plan for it. Let's have the infrastructure. It was COVID happened. Lots of things went remote. They've stayed remote. There's lots of benefits to working remote and having remote teams. However, it's for managers a very different way of managing a team as opposed to being in an office and your team is opposite you, you can talk to each other across the room. It's a whole different dynamic.
So our survey tells us that most teams are hybrid, right? But 65% of reps are saying they are happier working from home, right? They're more productive and they're happier. But wait for it. This is the good one. 50% of reps, so half of the reps in this survey, admitted they work fewer than 7 hours a day. So of course they're happier, right? I don't want to drive into an office either. I've been remote for 30 years. That's rough. But I think that shows, again, it's hardest on the manager. So I see a trend of more people trying to go hybrid and back into the office, at least part-time or some way around that. And we show that teams are better engaged and reps are ramping faster when that happens.
Yeah, and I think those are great points, and we'll get to dive in those a bit more too, because we actually have kind of one of our main topics being around leadership development and how that's, should be, if not already, a big focus for next year. But before we get to that, I want to touch on the big thing that I think Jason mentioned at the top of this call that everybody's talking about and thinking about, which is AI. So we all know this has been a huge buzzword, but I think there's been a lot of questions and maybe insecurity specifically of what that means to sales, and especially within the sales, an SDR role, sales development role. So, will it automate humans? Will it kick us out of the process entirely? So kind of the question I want to tee up to all of you, and maybe we'll start with Josh on this one, is how are leading organizations integrating AI to elevate that human performance, especially within the SDR team?
Mm-hmm. Really, really good question, and I love it. First thing that I wanna go in with is, right, AI is here to stay. Okay, like we've all used it. We all use it in varying capacities. I know I used it preparing some of my notes for this to make sure that I wasn't going on a tangent. It's here to stay. But the way that I feel it's used, which is actually disassociating leadership with the SDRs, is it's overused. We were speaking before about how AI, it is essential, but it's the salt and pepper, it's the seasoning, it's not the chef. It can't be the chef. If you put too much AI into something, it's going to taste terrible. It's going to be over seasoned. We all get the hundreds of emails, the hundreds of LinkedIn messages every week from genericAIbot.com, and it's painful. So for me, I think it's going to actually empower the SDR, and I'm going to touch on that in a second, but it's also going to empower the leader. I strongly feel that AI can be leveraged at really, for me, the coaching aspect of the SDR role, it can be leveraged in a small amount. And Lauren, I know this is something you feel really strongly about. Now, AI for me can be worked on the small stuff. So what I call practicing ugly. If there is an objection that they can't handle, AI is excellent at being able to act as a person. You can turn it up to 10 so you can't get a word in edgeways. You can turn it down to 1 where they will take a meeting, easy peasy. But what that's going to allow leaders to do is understand and diagnose, and rather than being a general practitioner or a doctor, you can be a consultant. You can understand exactly what those problems are and then connect with your SDR without the need for AI. So it's going to empower leaders to be much more accurate in their coaching rather than replacing.
It's accurate and efficient, if I can just add one thing to that, right? When I came up in sales management, we were still using tape recorders, right? And then we moved on into, I've got conversational intelligence tools, but I don't necessarily have a smart dashboard. I can't look at it and it tells me, hey, here's the roll-up summary of what's happening with Josh or with the team or with this skill. And AI plus conversational intelligence that's coming, and it's doing a better job of that. Now, most folks aren't using it yet. When we did our survey, the reps, managers, and leaders, the top 2 uses are helping me write and giving me call summaries. But what's next is AI and coaching. So tell me what and where to coach. That's huge. But like you said, now role play it. And at Factor8, we're developing that tool and training it with our frameworks so that you can not just get the after action report, right? You're not just looking at game tape, which is great. Love game tape. And I love faster, efficient, smarter game tape. But the practice before the call is coming as well. Now, I think that there's a warning that goes with that. AI is great when it gives you the call feedback, the game tape. It's going to tell your reps, hey, here's where you did well, here's where you didn't. Warning number 1, train the frameworks into it, or you're getting generic AI feedback on your sales call, and it's the same feedback all of your competitors are getting. We've all experienced AI making stuff up and lying to us. So get in there with your frameworks. Enablement leaders, get your seat at the table and make sure that you're helping define what good looks like there. Warning number 2, don't let AI replace coaching. All right? The reason that coaching is so important isn't about the deal feedback. Coaching is critical for the manager-rep connection, for the rep feeling invested in, for the rep getting career development. That's why they decide to stay with their manager and at your company. And if we let AI replace coaching, we are giving up that critical connection. So let it help us make our managers more efficient, more accurate. Let AI coach the deal and let the manager coach the rep. That's my best advice, though.
I'd agree with that. I think coaching is a great way to build a relationship with your team. Me and Josh, we're in the organization. We have a similar role at memoryBlue. However, Josh is 5 days a week in the office with his team manager, and I'm a completely remote 5 days a week remote manager, and we're both managing SDR teams. And coaching, when I'm coaching my reps, we're doing call listening, and we're strategizing, and I'm sharing areas of improvement, and then they go on and implement that feedback, and then they book a meeting. They have a really good conversation. They find more leads that they can reach out to. They're really appreciative of the time. Thank you for spending the time this morning, yesterday, reviewing those calls with me, giving me some guidance. And now we're a team, and and there's some loyalty there. Whereas if training was entirely videos and read this, look at that, let the AI bot tell you what to do, there'd be no loyalty to the organization. I think remote workers can be at risk of feeling lonely and isolated, and removing the human element, the human touch is going to mean you're going to have unhappy workers and less effective workers.
And I think just on that, it's going to be finding that balance, because everybody learns at a different rate, right? AI isn't going to be able to understand that person, right? So deploying the EQ when you're educating someone is going to be absolutely critical. That's never going to be replaced by AI.
Yeah. And here's the last thing, like when you get really down brass tacks to it, okay? The reason I was saying video training doesn't work is the same reason we have a risk with AI coaching and feedback. When you tell someone something, they forget 90% of what you said by the end of the week. Okay? That's it. Telling doesn't work. AI feedback, telling. Video-based training, telling. Where people actually build neural pathways, recall, retention, so they can apply something, is when they talk about it, when you discuss it, and then they practice it. And that's what the manager's doing together with their rep, right? We're having a discussion about it. So if the rep's not talking and practicing, they're not learning, and it won't get better. That's the bottom line here, right? So if we just hit the easy button and say, great, AI is going to do our coaching, AI is going to tell people what they did wrong, right? Now, in my experience, busy leaders will always hit the easy button, which is why I'm saying, hey, enablement, make sure that your coaching isn't just game tape. It's practice, and it's well-trained on what good looks like, because I think more and more people will be hitting that button of practice to supplement the manager interaction and coaching.
We've all had that great teacher where you have a problem, say a bad call, and they coach it out of you to find out what the issues were, where you could have made improvements. Like, I love listening to a call and being like, what are your thoughts? Before I start to say, oh, you should have done this and you should have done that, and maybe you could have done this different. Is AI going to coach it out of a person to identify their issues and be able to fix that?
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. And that's best practice in coaching. I've had the great pleasure of coaching 5,000 plus managers around the world. And the hardest skill is coaching for managers. It's the hardest. And the reason is we're trained to win deals. So when managers coach the deal, they can't help but say, "Ooh, you shoulda, you coulda, you woulda," right? Like they jump in to try to save the deal and they wind up telling, right? So the hardest behavior to change then is flipping into the asking and the sitting back and the coaching of the rep, where our number one priority is their development, learning, and engagement, not the saving of that deal. And unfortunately, our AI bots are all going to be calibrated to specific deal, specific call. And that's where it's going to take that coaching skill with the manager. So we're talking about, right, advice for folks. Once again, I go back to this, develop your managers, right? Not just teaching them how to use the AI tools, but how to engage and coach and be questions first, like you.
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting take that you all had that, I'm wondering if the audience maybe anticipated how AI was going to do outreach, or you were going to talk about how we're using it to send emails. But I love that the message was more about how we're using it to enhance coaching and not really to take the role of that. I think that's a really interesting perspective. And Lauren, you kind of touched on this a few times, and perfect segue into our next topic here. So we'll maybe kick off with you around leadership development and how that's really becoming a competitive edge for different sales organizations. If you can kind of speak to how you're seeing organizations make this shift, or what are some of the best practices when it comes to prioritizing this amongst your organization?
I mean, the best practice is to focus on the manager right now. CEB tells us that about 60% of new managers will fail out within 2 years. And the bummer is they were probably a top rep. So now you've lost both when they're failing out. It's a tough job, and it's tougher now. And we've talked about all the reasons why, right? But less than half of the companies actually have management development. And the reason is your enablement teams are strapped, right? They don't have the resources. The reps have a huge training gap as well. And there's one manager for every, right, 8 to 15 reps. So the ROI isn't there. So that's what you outsource and make happen, right? So that leadership development, the engaging of the reps, the coaching of the reps, the keeping people involved and moving up in their careers, those are still top needs of reps. They want that career development. We know that, right? Reps show up 5 days in a row. It's promotion time. So the managers are that catalyst to all of it. I'm telling you that leadership training is important, but I recommend you start with role-specific job training. What's the difference between a rep and a manager? What do I have to stop doing? What do I need to start doing? What meetings should I be having? What's my management cadence or process? Like a sales process, but for managers. What does a good one-on-one look like? Hiring, that's going to change. We have to be ready for it. Pipeline, right? We're all starting to use AI for forecasting next year. That's going to be another big trend, but it will not work if we have dirty, icky pipelines. So that's going to be another key management skill. And of course, the one we've already talked about, I think is most important to prioritize, and that's coaching skills. What do you guys think?
I agree with all of that, and I'm thinking back to when we were talking about AI and mainly kind of using it to kind of coach and train like SDRs and sales reps, whereas I think that's going to be a lot less useful for training managers and leaders. How does AI train leaders and leadership? It could tell you a few stats maybe, but I think it's much more complicated, and I think when you move from a position like an SDR where it's lots of calls, emails, LinkedIn messages, perhaps it's quite focused on particular things, where often leadership management roles, you're spinning lots of different plates, and you need lots of a wider range of, I think, skills and abilities, and that development is really going to come from other leaders, managers, coaches, being able to pass on experience and give feedback real time, as well as kind of maybe viewing a few recordings and perhaps one-to-ones you're having, or seeing you in action. So and I think it's super important for businesses to invest in that, and so that those leaders and managers are obviously bringing through the next generation of talent, the next wave of new starters, and are they going to be successful? That's going to be down to the setup and who they've got supporting them.
I love how you say, let's not use robots to train leadership. That's so, I mean, it's kind of a duh,
Scary
right?
thought,
But
isn't
like,
it?
let's teach them how to be better with people. Hey, we should use a robot for that. That's awesome.
I think it's interesting. So just looking around and hearing, obviously conversations that I had out there, leadership development is sold as a perk. It isn't a perk. In my opinion, leadership development is it impacts revenue, right? It's not oh yeah, join us because we can give you a development roadmap for leadership. It's a necessity that needs to be understood from everybody. It's like a good leader is going to give you the competitive edge because a good leader is going to be able to understand what KPIs mean. They're going to be able to look at how to grow and nurture individuals coming in. You got someone straight out of college coming in, how can you turn that person into your absolute A player as quickly as possible and find that path of least resistance? Robots are never going to do that. AI is never going to do that, but it's also not a perk. It is impacting that revenue. It's impacting that time to market. It's impacting your retention and giving your SDRs and your people that opportunity to grow through your leadership. So one thing that I've realized over the past couple of weeks is it isn't a perk. It is a necessity to actually do this.
It's one of the things that memoryBlue does so well. I love that about y'all. Your new hire training is known as world class, which means you're not starting at ground zero with your team of, right, 10, 12, 15. And you really do get to focus on getting them to an A level as quickly as possible. And you're doing it 15 people at once. You know what I mean? It's such a huge job, but you're not handicapped by having to teach them everything from scratch. You're right. You're like, it's like starting at second base. And I think
And you hear those kind of horror stories of new starters who join our organization and they're really appreciative of the onboarding and the training and the enablement, and they'll say, yeah, my last company, they shipped me a laptop and I spoke to my manager on my first day, and then I didn't speak to him for 4 weeks, and then it was like, well, where are the meetings, where are the results, and it
yeah,
was like, well, there was just no training support
yeah.
whatever, and no wonder it didn't work.
And now it's time that we do that for our managers. It's not a perk, right? We don't hear those horror stories as often because there's fewer of us and we suck it up. But that's what I got. It was like, hey, here's your new nameplate and good luck. And it was miserable, right? I mean, like 30 years later, I started a company to train people about it because the pain was still fresh. So it's really important. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And these are all, I think, great points to sort of drive into continue building out what 2026 needs to look like and what are these changes. And I think the other key area we want to talk about in other things to consider for 2026 is the impact of metrics. And a lot of the SDR world has traditionally been steeped in dials, touches, tasks, volume of outreach. And I think we talked in our first topic about kind of the death of the hustle culture and how that's just not where modern SDRs are. So maybe we'll kick off with Jason. How are you seeing metrics shift, and what success should we be looking at for 2026? And what are kind of modern SDR teams? How should they be defined from a success standpoint and from growth?
Yeah, certainly. I think it's definitely not all about volume and the number of activities, and especially when it comes to number of emails being sent or number of LinkedIn messages being sent, because it's so automated now. It's not something to really achieve that you entered data into a tool that could send out tens and hundreds of messages. So I think the focus should be on the phone conversations, quality conversations, length of conversation. That the longer the conversation would suggest that this sales rep, and speaking about SDRs here, as that's my role as an SDR manager, that a long call will mean that they know their product, they know their solution, that they can talk about it for a lengthy period of time, that they're confident enough to be on the phone and not be looking to book the meeting as quickly as possible and get off because they don't want to ruin it somehow, but be more consultative. So I think that's one thing, and I think another is quality, and something that we're doing here at memoryBlue is it's tracking the quality of the meetings that we're providing to our customers. So it's not just, oh, you wanted 10 meetings and here's 10 meetings, but it's like, our target is 10 meetings, 10 quality meetings. Give us the feedback on each of those meetings. Why was it good? Why was it bad? More of that, or do we need to make some changes and some tweaks to our approach? So yeah, I think there are a few things that should be the success metrics for 2026.
I think it's really interesting that obviously I've been fortunate enough to see the evolution of that journey where, a number of years ago it was fill the top of the funnel, right? We want opportunities. If they've got an interest, bring them in, right? And many of our customers used to be happy with that motion. But Jason, to your point there, tracking that qualitative element of it is critical, making sure that those meetings are going to be going through to next steps. Now, for me, it's never going to be about, okay, you need to make 300 dials today, right? That is one way to get, if I paid somebody $1 every single time they picked up the phone and they made 300 dials, fine, but that's not what we're doing here. So for me, it's all about the SDR, and I call it the SDR maths, which is the effectiveness over the efficiency that the SDR needs to find. If they're making 200 dials but not speaking to anybody, what's the point? It's about making sure that they aren't just chasing a KPI for the sake of it, but understanding why they're doing what they're doing. And again, that qualitative outreach. So I still believe that you need to pick up the phone. I think that actually is a huge differentiator now for SDRs who hide behind those LinkedIn messages, who hide behind those emails. I do think it's unique now to actually pick up the phone and speak to someone. We can't distance ourselves from the fact that you need to pick up the phone and need to make dials for that. Making 200 dials to get those conversations, that's where leadership comes in, and you help them understand that maths and help them understand what that effectiveness over efficiency is. So again, that pipeline generation, absolutely, I think that's going to be the metric, certainly within our world and what we're bringing to our customers. What does that pipeline look like? What does that middle of funnel look like? How many opportunities are moving? I think we're going to start hearing a lot more about stages of ops as we start moving into 2026 within our customer base. But Lauren, what do you feel is going to be those metrics for next year?
Yeah, I agree with you guys. Quality is going to be king. And so if we were to get really specific and you wanted to start measuring quality in SDRs, you're going to look for average talk time per call. Like you said, Josh, that means they know their product and also that they're connecting with their customer. I want to look at total talk time as well, because I don't think we can throw out our quantity metrics because this generation's hiding behind the phone. We just have to put quality on top, or hiding behind email, right? Not picking up the phone. I like to see average talk time per call, right? Are we connecting with customers and keeping them on the phone? I like to look at inbound calls where my message is good enough. They're calling me back. Did I connect with my customer well enough? They call me with a question and not just go to the chat bot on the web. I think those are really good for SDRs. If you're looking at meeting quality, we're not just looking at number of meetings set, we're looking at meeting show rate. That's really important. And then, like we said, what percentage of meetings are booking to stage 2? Now, you talked about getting SDRs involved in nurture, and I think that's really important. Every role needs to be involved somehow in nurture. So I'd like us to look at pipeline velocity as well. Most leaders are talking about a trend they saw in 2025, which is deal cycles taking longer. But the AI trends for 2026 tell us that they will shorten. It will make it faster and easier for people to buy. We've all gotten used to in the last 10 years that customers come to us 50, 60% of the way through the sales cycle. The addition of AI in the marketing world means they're going to come to us at 70, 80% of the way through the sales cycle. So I think we have to have our reps ready to meet them and very quickly push through to a sale. So I'd like to see that pipeline velocity getting smaller. So average talk time, calls back, total talk time, meeting show rate, and a shrinking speed to close.
I think we're talking here about kind of like almost redefining like the SDR role as well. That there was a time where it was you set up the meeting and that was it. Your job's done. like you're on to the next, and it doesn't matter what happened. Companies weren't rewarding those SDRs for those becoming opportunities and becoming deals. So yeah, bringing those prospects, those leads to the company, and then helping nurture them along.
Yeah.
Because that one lead might have been 5 conversations over 12 months with lots of emails and perhaps LinkedIn touches,
Right.
and then you introduce them to your account manager and say bye-bye,
Well, and
it's as if I don't exist anymore.
Right.
You're theirs now.
We've all gotten used to that process in the last few years, right? The rise of SaaS meant the rise of the SDR role. And I really do wonder if we're going to see a pendulum shift a little bit. If our buyer is better informed, will they be frustrated with the blank space of the SDR whose only job it is to set up a meeting and disappear? I think the answer may be yes. And I'll be the first to tell you that 10 years ago, when I first started training the SDR role, I would say don't give them all the product training. Because when an SDR gets really deep into a product conversation, whoops, they should have known that product question was a signal to book the meeting for the AE to answer those questions. But I don't have the time to waste on this crap, right? I don't want to talk to somebody who is just a blank space. Give me the basics. Let's qualify each other out. I think they need to be a little more knowledgeable. And I like the idea that they're going to stay with me and check in on me. That's the human touch that we said at the top of the hour was the differentiator.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you all so much for all of the thoughtful insights that you've given us today. There's so many different things to consider, I think, to take back, from keeping people at the center of sales, leveraging AI, not using it to replace, keeping leadership at the forefront. I think that was one of the things that came up actually in almost every single one of these discussions. And then I think also what we just spoke on is this idea of quality over quantity. Quantity can't go away entirely, but just shifting maybe the prioritization there. But before we move on to kind of our last section, I want to pass it to each of you to give sort of your one resounding summary of advice for what sales leaders should be doing in 2026. So maybe we'll start with Lauren and then go to Josh and Jason.
Sales leaders for 2026. Get ready to be nimble. So, got it. I've got like 5. I've got to pick one. Then I've got to go to my touchstone, and that is double down on skills development so that your people are the difference.
Great. Love that. Josh?
My piece of advice to sales leaders is, in a world that is now very, very AI, be human. Don't forget the human touch. That doesn't mean just jumping on everybody and saying, oh yeah, listen, it's really great to be here, but just don't forget the human touch. Remember the EQ, not just the AI that's coming in, because anyone can use ChatGPT.
Absolutely. And Jason?
I'd say upskill yourself, upskill yourself on AI, for example, as well as all kinds of things. But understand AI as much as your reps do. Sometimes I see managers where their SDRs are fantastic at AI because it impacts their world a lot more, but the managers are a bit behind. So understand AI and then understand its limitations, where you need to come in and where you're essential.
Fantastic. And our last 2 thoughts, I want to pass it over to Lauren to start, to give us a bit more information about Factor 8, and then we'll wrap with hearing a bit about memoryBlue. So Lauren.
Oh, thank you for that. So Factor 8. When I jumped out of corporate after leading sales teams and enablement teams, I went and started Factor 8 because I couldn't find those tactical digital phone selling skills, that 101, 201 for frontline reps and frontline managers. And that's where we play. We love partnering long-term with enablement teams and with sales leaders. Here are a couple of the brands that we've been fortunate enough to work with. And I think we passed the QR code on the previous slide. We'll make sure everybody gets it. But we've done a really comprehensive state of sales survey with some secret insights from reps, managers, and leaders, of course, also with the role of AI. And that's our gift to you. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. And let me jump to memoryBlue side. Sorry for clicking around. Josh, do you want to give us a quick overview, or Jason, about memoryBlue?
Absolutely. So memoryBlue, we've been established for 20 years in this space. We are very much that outsourced SDR business development function that helps technology organizations within the SaaS space connect with technology buyers. So really that top of funnel, middle of funnel side of things. We do this across the entirety of Europe. The unique part about that is we use native language speakers. You want to target Central Europe, you're going to need to have a French speaker. We're going to be able to help you with that. And we also do that across the entirety of the US as well. So essentially we're able to get all of those time zones covered. And we're allowing our customers to really accelerate their pipeline. It's sales acceleration as a service essentially. And we're really able to understand our customers' ICP. We're able to action that with clear go-to-market expertise and essentially help you close more deals much, much quicker.
Great. Thank you so much. So again, to our speakers, thank you again for your time and all of your valuable thoughts. And to our audience, thank you for joining us today. Hopefully you got some great takeaways from this, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Bye.
Happy holidays.